Pythagorean theorem. What does Pythagorean theorem mean? It just means we're doing Pythagoras. Okay? So Pythagorean theorem, basically it means we're doing Pythagoras. Write that down. Take a little note. Just remind yourself in case you didn't know. Well, Pythagoras is both. Pythagoras is a dude, but he's also it's also the name of his formula. He's so famous. Big famous dude, Pythagoras. Okay? Well, you know what? They didn't have genders back then. I mean, I don't know. I don't know Greek. They did. Those Greeks did some interesting stuff. So this is the formula that we use the most. C squared. So start with C squared. I know it looks like I'm writing it backwards, but when you're writing in this format, it's easier. It's like a sentence. And it's easier to see, read, and use. So C squared equals A squared plus B squared. C should be your hypotenuse. So C should be your hypotenuse, and the rule of the hypotenuse is it's the longest side. So in order to make something longer, we need to add A and B squared together. Okay, we've got to add our legs to make it longer, so the hypotenuse is the longer side. If we subtract, the hypotenuse will be the longest side, so then it's incorrect. Now, we change our formula, and we change it to A squared equals C squared minus B squared. Okay? A squared equals C squared minus B squared. And that's when we find the leg. So any other side other than hypotenuse. The trick with the leg is it must be smaller than C. In order to make it smaller, we have to do the subtraction. Now, if you don't like A squared, you can switch that with B squared. It doesn't matter. But you're still going to have C squared first and do your subtraction. Okay? It doesn't matter which formula you use, they're the same. I always start with A first because I got 2 A's in my name. It's kind of a better letter. Got to be honest. That's why everyone calls me Aaron. Okay. So other things we have to keep in mind. Number one is that when we are labeling a triangle, the hypotenuse is across from 90 degrees. So we put our pencil, we actually do this, we put our pencil here on 90 and we draw that arrow. And then we can put an H there, HYP. Okay? But you have to be able to identify the hypotenuse, HYP. And the trick of the hypotenuse is the hypotenuse must be the longest side. I sure hope you wrote that down 4 times already, because if you don't, you're not going to remember it. And you must remember that. It's the only thing you have to remember. That the longest side is the longest side. It's got to be the longest side, and that's the hypotenuse. Okay. Any questions so far? Are you sure? Going once, twice. Sold. Moving on. So once we have the hypotenuse labeled, and we label it by drawing that arrow. Okay, and here I have it, the 90-degree symbol already looking like an arrow. So this arrow is pointing to the hypotenuse. So important, so important, so important. Okay. So since it's the longest side, it's always opposite the largest angle, which is 90. And here it is that Pythagoras' theorem is talking about squares. So if we're talking C squared, that equals C times C. B squared equals B times B. And so if we have the number 5, 5 squared would equal 5 times 5, which is not 10, it's 25. Just like 7 times 7 squared equals 7 times 7, which is not 14, it's 49. Okay, we have to know how to square with an S in front. Got to know how to square. Okay? So what Pythagoras actually did is he actually did this. He actually went and he actually made a square. So he took the side and he said, let's make a square. And the square is dimension AA, so the area is A squared. And that's what he found was the area of that square. And then he took the B and he drew another square. And he found, hey, the area B times B is B squared. When I do this little math thing, beep, 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 he used his calculator. They had them back then. And he found the area of this side C, which is C by C, but he found that it was the two areas added together, A squared plus B squared. Okay? So he actually found that. That's what he's doing, is he's finding the area of squares and adding, subtracting areas. Okay? Again, the formula we're going to use is this one right here, for we're trying to find the hypotenuse. C squared equals A squared plus B squared. And C is the longest side. But if we're trying to find a leg, then it's A squared equals C squared minus B squared. The hypotenuse must go first. If it doesn't go first, you screw it up, because your calculator gives you like a negative, and you can't take a square root of a negative. It gives you like an error or undefined, and you're like, what the beep? And then you realize, oh, you got it backwards. Okay? So usually you can't screw that part up. But adding and subtracting is what you screw up. So looking at this in more detail then, we'll go down below. Can I go down below? You guys still writing? Still writing? I'll give you a second. Pause. My bad. So what we have here is we have squares. Now let me explain this to you as we do this, and it will make a lot more sense. Oh my, it's not that bad, folks. It's not that bad. Oh, it's just chill. Chillax, you guys. Chillax. Probably only get like 2 questions done. Actually, yeah, we will. What is the name? Ooh, no, 1:15, isn't it? Let me check. Stand by 1. Check. 1:15, ha! Okay. Yeah, you know what? Let me go on with this another day. So let's draw a triangle real quick. I'm going to go, here's a triangle. Let's label this X, W, Z. Okay. So typically what we would do is we would say A squared plus B squared equals C squared. However, we change the letters. The only one that matters is W. So this must become W squared. That's the only thing that's important. The rest, we would say X squared plus Z squared. Okay. Or if I wrote it the other way, I could say W squared equals X squared plus Z squared. You guys okay with that? Let me change it to some other letters. Let's go F, G, and H. Okay. What would the Pythagoras formula look like? Got to identify the hypotenuse. What would it look like? F squared, you got to talk about squares. Okay. Plus what? H squared equals G squared. Okay. Or if you wrote it the other way, G squared equals what? F squared plus H squared. Okay. So you're just changing using the proper letters. The only one that matters, like F and H, these could be in either order. It doesn't matter. But G squared must be G squared on that proper side. You guys okay with that? All right. So now you guys can go and do assignment number 1, the very first couple questions. Okay. Go ahead and do assignment number 2, number 1, A and B. Okay. Assignment number 2, A and B. Okay, your answer keys at the back. Answer keys at the back.